Let's see if there's could you guys check my channel, see if it's working?
Working.
Alright, cool. Alright, so today is an interesting day because we are going to take a look at Zach's piece of art, Slink's piece of art, and also for the sake of Snoop, we're going to check his piece of art, but we're going to record it and stream it today. We're also going to take a look and explore at a couple of topics concerning interior design. I'm no architecture expert, so I'm here to just see how it goes. And we'll leave the panel open. Though I have done my research, and there are a couple of things I have kept in mind. And to be honest, my girlfriend's pretty good at interior design, so kind of live it a little bit. So let's without further ado, let's begin. Hello, Matisse.
Teach me.
All right, Slink. Should we start with yours? Oh wait, you have
if you
geometry
want.
nodes.
I have notes.
That's right. So tell me about it. You wanted me to like, what do I think about this geonode stuff that you showed? So let me just share my screen. We'll start with you from the bottom, and then go, and then we'll do the interior
Should
design.
I send the notes like for the GeoNode stuff?
Sure. I'm still learning geometry now, so you've got the floor today. So tell us about it.
Like here I send it in Q&A and critique, like my note my note setup.
It's loading.
So
I also saw that you pushed it into to your Gumroad, right? In the resources, here it is. It's in the resource channel. Oh, hello, Ruts. How you doing?
I'm doing alright. How about
Good.
me?
Pretty good. We're just going to take a look at interior design tips shortly after we have a quick little look and critique of these geonodes. I'm completely out of my depth here. His internet broke. Oh well, we're still streaming. But basically what it does, I'm going to quickly download it. To my folder. Yep. Was doing some animation. Branching tree. Not it, sorry. This is something else. Okay, good.
I think I'm back.
Alright, good. I'm glad to hear. Hello, Neat Squid.
I named it
Geonodes Forest Ground.
for first ground.
Why it isn't done properly.
Probably in C downloads, huh?
Oh, it's because it's inside of a zip. Okay. I was expecting to open up the blend file directly. There you go. So what does this node tree do? You use modular tree to make the trees, correct? There you go. And the floor has the geonodes, right? There it is. Okay.
Yes.
You love your internet, you're disconnected, but you're connected. Alright. Alright, so my constructive criticism is your organization is pretty good. Nice.
Okay.
Scatter. Displacement. So the displacement uses a texture that writes into the distance, into a shade of vertex group, I suppose, by the distance. And you have point instances, two groups of them. Randomizing the
Yes.
scale.
One of them is just like a
Proximity.
one of those yeah, it's just a prox to show where to displace the ground. Like I
Cool.
found out like if I use the tree model, just the raw tree model, the branches which are like really low to the ground will also floor, which will be low.
Yeah, true. Yeah, there'll be like the dirt growing up from the tree branches. So you have two models in the scatter.
And it works fine.
Right. Cool. And you made the
Just-
trees with the modular add-on, right? Modular tree.
Yes. The modular tree I just found today.
Yes, I'm so glad it updated. Well, I like it.
Wait, it updated for 2.93?
Yes.
Yes, it's
Oh,
I sent it in resources. There you can find it.
That's super nice. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, I was trying to use it in the Monday render
Ah.
challenge, and I had to go
Like,
back to 2.92 because
mm,
I think only a couple of weeks ago it must have been because I think
Yeah.
it was
I
3
don't
weeks ago it was
know.
still broken.
Yeah, it was updated in the
I
forums
know,
a
but
little while back, but needed
Oh, nice. Okay, I'll reinstall it. Awesome.
exactly such a
yes,
good add-on.
me,
All right, excellent work.
my
I
favorite
like it.
add-on. Thank you.
So now
And
the
it's
next
all neatly in a modifier group, so you can control everything without going to the geometry nodes.
down here in this stack here. So
Yes.
your proxy trunk group and your tree
Oh.
group.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing this, keeping this free.
Yes, I will keep this free forever.
Awesome. There is a little typo here, it just says skater instead of scatter. So that's the only critique I have. Hopefully it's a little bit constructive.
Just ignore my dyslexia. Just start to ignore it.
all right, all good. So let's move on. So we're looking at interior design. So we've got two submissions here. One is from Zach, and one of them is from Snoop, which is not here right now. So we're streaming live and recording this for Snoop. But since you're here, Zach, let's take a look at your
Another competition, another competitor occurs.
Oh, yeah. Cool. So Zach, tell me about the context of your piece.
Yeah, sure. It was a collaborative uni project that I have an assessment for tomorrow. With effectively, we were doing a project on digitally rethinking waiting rooms, and it ended up as a whole series of them as animations, but we needed one semi, or at least an attempt to be realistic one to begin the animation. It's done with an original base mesh. But I can find it. 1 second.
Is this based off
Wait.
a real world location, or is this just conceptualization?
No, I'll show you exactly what it's based off. Just to,
Sure.
I'll send it in the Q&A critique one.
Okay, the reason being is I need this context to gather some information because my general context for judging these things or working through the concept is I have 5 points of assessment concerning interior design. And based on just some quick scouring of the internet, got a couple links for you guys. And I'm going to quickly explain some things to help you figure it through because I had some uncontextualized opinions about it, but now I have a little bit more context concerning how people do it. And now I need to know what your context is, what your goals were. You said you wanted to highlight the clock, right?
Yeah, so one of the biggest parts of our animation was the concept of time, because we were doing stuff in a waiting room. We were doing things with changing how people view time inside waiting rooms. So the clock would stay the same throughout each different iteration. And effectively what we did was I made a base mesh, which you can see as the clay images that you're loading up there. And we all started with the same base mesh, and then we all made different iterations of the waiting room. I think you've probably seen a couple of them. I've jotted a few down in like the work in progress section and that kind of thing.
Ask a question.
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
How did you like made this? Did you guys use like mix Blender mix add-on,
No,
or
so
you just send the file to each other?
yeah, so I started off with a clay file, which was just basically everything blocked out. It was it's all just squares basically, with 2 cameras, as you can see there. There's 2 different renders from 2 different
World.
cameras, and sent that file to everyone, and everyone could just work from that file with a big sign on the camera's collection saying "Do not move." And then we ended up with, because it's going to be projected on two walls, like two walls at 90 degrees. That's why we had to do it from 2 different cameras.
Gotcha.
So you end up with this quite weird, sort of slightly broken perspective at the end, but it's because it's going to be projected.
Yeah, I couldn't quite tell if this was like a panorama or a 360.
Yeah, it has quite a weird effect when you have stuff animating across it, like across the cameras. It gets
Or
even
like,
weirder.
yeah, it would like,
But,
yeah, that'd be interesting. What you could do is with your render is tilt shift your lenses on the one left and tilt shift to the right. Wow.
yeah,
From the same
that was a
point.
thought I had, but I just didn't know how to do it just left and right. I didn't know how to mask it.
Okay. Well, basically, if you have your camera here, for example, in your 3D view,
Yep.
I'm going to just duplicate the camera. So this one's going to be left. Will be left. One will be right. I'm going to just make like a cube is like a seam in the center of the view. Just kind of like, whoops. To a one tweak. So that this would be like my center reference or my seam reference. So my camera left, if I'm in there, you just go to your Shift X. So now that's tilt shifted to the left. And then here on your camera right. I mean, obviously you can be a lot more precise than what I'm doing. You just change your Shift X to the other side. So that both your cameras work together with your tilt shifted mirror. So you can stitch them a bit better. Hello 3D Things, how are you?
Oh,
Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you all? It's been some time, actually.
Yeah, good. We're looking
Oh,
through.
I actually need
Huh?
some suggestions, actually, from you, Drace.
Cool, we'll put it
Thought
to
I'll
the queue.
jump in the Q&A critic.
Okay.
Sure. It's just like how to make portfolio renders for your materials.
How do I make what?
Portfolio renders for materials.
Port for my render.
No, I think you're
Portfolio.
saying
Oh,
portfolio
portfolio.
renders.
Portfolio
for
renders
specific-
for materials. Good question. The way you've done it, though, I think have been pretty good with a sphere and like a plane and lighting. But I guess with lighting, yeah, you would use 3-point, I suppose, to pop the details. You suck at lighting. So I'll explain to this later after the interior design. So that's a good question, actually. So I'll put it to the queue. So I am transmitting here live because I want to record this for Snoop since he can't make it right now. So we're just going through Zach's piece right now, and then we're going to look at Snoop's piece, and then we'll take a look about lighting, since lighting of interior designs is actually quite a good segue into getting into making good portfolio attractive renders that just pop. Can't say I'm very good at it, but I only know some of the theory and tips. So just 3D things. So hang on there. Don't go anywhere. How do I light shader presentations for portfolio? For a good portfolio. Awesome. Everyone says they suck at lighting. And lighting is like half a 3D pretty much. So it's something that's worth watching. Alright, so back to you, Zach. So I now understand that everyone is working on time and clocks. So here's my first initial impression. The wall is a little bit, no, the roof, okay, the lighting is dark, relatively dark. and the walls are gray, and the floor is kind of like the same tone of grayish, but kind of a blue. Same with the floor, and it's a very dark color. We have a little bit of life. We got a window coming in, but no light from the window, and we've got these doors that go through, and a hazard sign, and like some signs. Some people sitting underneath the signs. So basically, okay. So in my opinion, there is no attention drawing me to the clock. Everybody's facing away from the clock. And also, it's a very oppressive, I guess you could say, color scheme that you're using, and the way that you've painted.
That second one, your clock point is fantastic. The oppressive lighting was on purpose.
Oppressive lighting is on purpose.
This particular piece was
Hospital?
supposed to be in contrast to much more joyous versions of this space that we were making afterwards.
Okay,
So I specifically sort of upped the blues and sort of turned down the intensity of the lighting to make it a little more sad, if that makes sense.
all right.
But so the oppressive thing should be sort of in the design.
Okay,
But your point about everything turning away from the clocks is really important, actually. Thank you.
good. All right, so this is how I'm going to critique it and how I'm going to give you some constructive criticism. First things first is we need to think about contrast, light, and shadow. Next things we need to think about is harmony and thoughtfulness, how you think about the people and the people that are in there. Another thing you need to think about is suitability and coziness. And from there, that kind of leads into the next one, which is boldness or playfulness. You are going for something that is the opposite of playfulness, which would be something bold. And then from there, we're looking at coordination, symmetry, and balance. So these are the 5 things that I noticed in a lot of people's blogs and websites and things about interior design. And also, these are similar to the principles of art, I guess you could say, is balance. Balance, thoughtfulness or story, contrast and light, and texture, boldness and playfulness, texture, and things like that. So harmony and thoughtfulness is about story, contrast or light is about just general rendering, boldness and playfulness is like your colors and your concept of rendering, and coordination and symmetry is layout. So in this case, contrast and light. Let's take a look at your contrast and light. Yeah, I'm going to break it down to pieces. I hope you don't mind, so that you can build something nicer, even with that oppressive
Oh,
feel.
please do. It's the nice thing is this project has officially, according to my university, ended. So this is just for me to learn.
All right.
Which is super nice.
All right, let's do this. So let me just pull the image up again so I can copy it into the software. Open up the original, copy, paste. What? There was nothing. Copy image. Now it's working. Expand the canvas. So first things first, I'm going to go into my black and white mode. And look at this. Lo and behold, it's very gray. So what I would love to do is basically, what I would do is I would take the concept of purposefulness with contrast. So in interior design, you have a couple of color theory, which is one. So your color theory of using blue is correct. Use it like peace. But you can also use contrast theory to grow your room spaces. So for example, if you want to create something compact, then all of the walls and the roof would be dark. But if you want to just to push the roof down, then you'll keep the walls light and the roof dark. And you can do the same for different illusions. For example, you can make the space longer by making the walls white and the background black, or you can make it feel highlight a particular area that the people are supposed to look at by keeping all of the house dark and one light, or the opposite, one wall dark and everything else white. You can make the walls feel shorter by half painting them, or a third paint them. And you can also compact everybody by keeping everything dark, and so forth. You could also even stretch the place further down by keeping the back wall white, the roof white, and the side dark. So there are different techniques that you can use with contrast. So in your world here, what you were trying to keep things oppressive. So you want to drop the roof, right? So you make the roof even darker. So all of this roof over here would be, let's just make it darker. So it just pushes down a little bit. And you wanted to, like, for example, push in everybody a little bit. So for example, this wall here, since you need to look at the clock, would be lighter. So we go the other way, make it brighter. So this is a lighter color. There's like a light wall. And you want to like make this feel narrow, right? You want to oppress everybody. So these walls over here and this wall over here, whoops, also is quite dark. Oops. Contrast. So we want to go the other way. So these are quite dark. So this hallway, we want to make it feel very long. So you would make this quite light. So you start using contrast with your painting scheme and your color scheme to like draw and push and pull and make the room the actual space that you want it to be by illusions of contrast. All right?
That's really interesting and helpful. I'm just wondering, would this be in sort of the work process? I guess you would definitely look at this afterwards, like after you're doing your test renders. Like, I guess if this was a test render, you'd be doing this. But would you recommend almost painting out, because I had as you saw, I had the block space beforehand. Would you recommend doing this kind of thing before you start going in with details and texturing and all of this kind of thing? Or is it simply something that's done in at a later stage?
Usually this is like post-processing. In other words, so in the process of interior design, you plan your intention, right? So you have your contrast, light, and shadow, but you first plan your story, thoughtfulness and coziness, or suitability. So in this concept with your waiting room, like your story of the waiting room, let's go back to the image. Okay, so your goal was this light or this clock, and then you have the people, and then you have people walking around between the doors and through the hallway into another door and walking around here. So if you're thoughtful, then maybe you're like, okay, let's get my noting tool. So now you know the basic theories. Okay, so you need contrast, light, and shadow. You have light coming in from the window, so you probably need to render that. You need to see how does that affect the world. Does it fill the world when it hits the ground, so the ground is very reflective, or does light get absorbed by the dark carpet? Right? So it doesn't bounce anywhere. You know, you got to think about your light and your shadows and contrast of where you want people to look and how they want how you want them to feel. As you can see, our white sky is open spaces, a dark cave is a closed space. So you use light and dark to work those feelings. And it actually is really cool. Like if you want to see the materials that impact space, here's a link that I'm going to quickly throw into the chat so you can see it. Whoops, sorry, let me link it with the www. Yeah, you got it. So, no, this isn't it. Sorry. This one. There we go. I got 4 links. Here it is. So this link is, or this article, sorry, let me just link that in as well. We'll quickly show you what it does, right? So here in the corridor, you have a dark one and it feels more cramped. And then you have the light one and it feels more spacious. Or like you use this dark area to like make the bathroom feel really small and everything else really white and open. Very private, a very private bathroom. So to make the space larger, lots of light colors. To make the space darker, lots of dark colors, so this hallway feels dark. You want to make the ceiling feel lower than it is, then there it is, nice and dark. So as you can see, You can make the hallway feel smaller and more intimate by making the roof really white. And you pull that through and up and out. Same with making the space feel wider. You know, 2 white sides makes a very thin space feel wider. Right? Or the opposite. You know, make it feel thinner, like an actual very wide corridor, but make it feel like a corridor by making it feel thinner, by making it white on the roof and then the background, but everything else black. So intention of space. Same with this one here, shorten the space. Like this is a very long lounge, so you make the background dark and everything else white so that the lounge feels less long than it is, so it feels more rounded, more of a general space. The same with highlighting a wall to like focus on that particular, where am I supposed to go? Don't focus on the dark blues, but focus on the white in the background to walk down that corridor. So intention with the contrast, shortening the walls, just to make like if the roof is very tall, things like that. So this article is really good. It gives you good walk into the wall, yeah. So that gives you intention. So in this room here, my intention would be, okay, make things oppressive by making the roof darker, the floor even darker as well, possibly. Putting my attention to the wall with the clock and things like that. Making the attention of walking down the corridor by making the background white-ish. And every other wall, make it very darker, even, you know, focus on the contrast. And the light from the window, like is it inside of a car park or something? That's important. So then you got to think about the story of your interior decoration. Harmony and thoughtfulness, coziness and suitability, boldness and playfulness, coordination and symmetry. So when you think of a story or thoughtfulness, you got to think about what is the purpose of the furniture? Or why do we want to work it? So let's take a look at this quick article that I highly recommend as well. The psychology of 8 great qualities. This article actually kind of blew my mind. Very short and sweet, but it gives you, I summarized it into like 5. So here it talks about glamour, symmetry, contrast, harmony, coziness, boldness, playfulness. And basically it's the general concept is like, okay, so it thinks about function and form and how you organize this function and form based on thoughtfulness of what the story is. So with your image, I wouldn't put the chairs underneath the signs, because when people walk by, they either stare at the signs or stare at the people. So the person sitting on the chair, he's going to be stared at, right? So that's not a very comfortable experience. So I wouldn't wait underneath the sign. Another thing is like, okay, so these people are sitting at a table and they can't walk around because it's slippery and the clock is behind them, the notices are behind them. The people who are sitting underneath the notices and the clock, they will be also in the way of people looking at the clock and looking at the notices on the wall in case they are bored. Also, you're sitting beside plants. Are the plants waiting with you? Are you a plant? You know, it's kind of like the implication of the story of where you put your furniture. And also, yes, these people can hide away and they're away from people walking. But like, it's not a very pleasant waiting experience. Let me put it that way. Anxiety intensifies, as Slink mentions. So if you're
you're right.
If your intention, if you want to improve the waiting experience in this oppressive environment, is like, okay, you want to keep people not distracted by people walking around. So you would face the chairs towards the clock, towards the notices, or make them circle them around so that they're more social. So it creates their own kind of like little lounge around the plants and around the clock and around the window. So that the people are no longer apart, they're in their own world. So that you can use the colors or the textures or the decorations of that particular lounge area so that people feel like they're in a home away from home and everything else that you've painted or used to drive the traffic. So you focus, for example, you want to make people feel comfortable, so you maybe this whole entire space, I would paint very light, very white or a light color, and all of this other space over here very dark. Same with the corridor with the light here. This is very dark, very dark. And maybe even just over that particular space, just to sectorize it, I would also make it a very light color so that people can breathe while they look into their own corner of the waiting space, looking at the clock, looking at the notices, looking at the plants in a V shape so that they can be social and talk around a little bit. And they walk in and they're protected from the traffic that walks around. So you got to think about the people's experience, their story, what they want to do and how they do it and why they want to do it. Same with the lighting. So let's go back. So coziness and suitability. Coziness is like, okay, very comfortable and everything, and suitability and like, does it suit the function of what people need to do? Are they standing in the way of somebody washing their hands? You know? Then you got to think of boldness, playfulness. So playfulness obviously is like very entertaining colors and things that people can use, or boldness, something that people would like just focus on one thing. So the human mind is very distracted. So in this case, because you're so distracted, you need to have a lot of things to look at to not be so distracted, which is like this notice board over here, the books on the table here, the plants and things. So I would do the same with the decorations, like a couple of posters here, or a couple of other things to look at over here, or like a coffee machine in the corner, or like a water thing. You know, things that people could do or look at, or even like a television up at the top here so that people can watch whatever's happening, so that the waiting can happen faster because people are busy being distracted. So those are the two things that you need to keep in mind, is like, how bold are you? Are you going to make it playful, playfully distractive, or are you going to make it bold? There's only one thing the person can look at, and that is the clock and the turn number. So that means you focus on the clock and the turn number. All the chairs face the clock and the turn number, right? Huge contrast. Everything else is bland, and like you have a white water cooler, a white table, white chairs, but the clock is bright red and black. And there's one lamp that shines onto the clock, and everything else is just white. White for the open space so they can breathe, but a bold focus on the clock, right? So you use these two types of contrast, like distracting playfulness or focused and sharp boldness, for the intention of your space. And then from there, obviously, you got to think about coordination, symmetry, balance. Now in the space here of like these chairs and things, like we got 4 chairs by 5 chairs. It's not very symmetrical. So that creates discomfort. You did a good job at making a very uncomfortable waiting experience. I give you credit for that.
I'm glad of it. I was yeah. Lots of this was in many senses an anti-interior design thing, but your points about focus and about contrast and that kind of thing weren't, because I didn't come from this from an interior, like an interior design perspective. So it's really interesting to hear all of these are concepts I didn't know existed. So it's really nice.
Yeah, it's kind of a fun thing to think about. And it's also these concepts you need to think about when you do environment design as well. So interior design, environment design. One business is kind of like an industry where people actually furnish houses and apartments and even commercial centers and things like that. But it also applies to the environment game artist and any other artist who works with spaces. So it's super interesting to learn about these things because it applies to, like, okay, your 3D industry failed, well, start up an interior design company because you know what you're doing, right? So it's worth knowing. It's worth knowing about this stuff. Really interesting stuff. So that's my context for my criticism. Hopefully it's constructive. As I'm just going to quickly copy and paste these links again. You guys can take a look at. And also on top of that, psychology color. Your color's fine because blue is like more of a calm, chill, relaxed type of feeling. It doesn't have a lot of negative connotations to it. If you want to make people more angsty, then I would throw in more reds because that would make people more impatient, more passionate. Yeah, more like get the blood flowing and you can't do anything because you have to wait. Then you can make people feel super angsty, dark red or something like that. Okay? If you really wanted to tick people's nerves off. So it's kind of like with those 5 things in mind, harmony or being thoughtful about the space, if things are suitable, like practical, I guess you could say, practicality, or function, boldness or playfulness, coordination, symmetry, and balance. You could off-balance things or make things more balanced. Contrast, light, and shadow. All these 5 topics will help you to create a good interior. And obviously sometimes you just need to know how to live in an interior just to get that feeling or understand your people or what their goal is and what they need to do. So let's take a look at Shade Snoop with that context in mind. Let's take a look at the first image. What do you guys see? You guys, what do you think of this space? Anyone?
Oh, sorry.
Lots of rendered noise, yeah. But that's okay.
I had said this. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by the chat. I had written this down in the chat earlier, but the counters look quite low to me.
It is true, they're almost like 1 meter high. It might be the camera lens.
Yeah.
And the illusion of the slanted roof. But you might be right there.
Compared to the door, they seem quite low. And they seem lower than the coffee table and the, not the coffee table, the side table over next to the couch. Like I know they're at a different distance from the camera, but it felt like it going from, like if you were to follow it across the wall.
Alright, that's a good,
Well,
that's a good.
Couple of things I noticed is the fact that the ceilings in the floor run perpendicular is kind of distracting, and they're of course both dark, whereas the walls are light, so you get the brightness you were talking about for the openness for the walls, but then the ceiling feels a little low. And I like the use of color to distinguish the kitchen grouping from the living grouping with the blues versus the reds. That's very subtle, but it seems to work fairly well. And that one chandelier with the circular lamps is in completely the wrong place.
Yeah, that was going to be my one as well. Like this chandelier is the lounge. It's a lounge light. So, like should be sectored off to the lounge. All right, cool. So how do you think this could improve? Where could this what could we do? What could we change to make this feel more, let's take a look at our criteria. Feel more cozy or practical? Have a lot more harmony or thoughtfulness? Do we make it more bold or more playful? And what about a contrast in light? So he's using colors quite correctly or quite well. So his contrast with colors is good. I would say that's good. But now the rest is like, okay, so you mentioned the roof feels too low. How would you guys improve this?
Literally, I'd raise the roof, but figuratively, I would use a lighter wood or a lighter stain if that's already a light wood.
Or even widening the grain of the planks going across the roof might also do it, because it would make fewer darker areas. Like you can see those dark lines going all the way across. You can just make fewer of them by widening the wood planks effectively.
Yeah. Alright, so I noticed that this is kind of like a loft roof. of some typical apartments here in the city. So the roof is slanted, so raising the roof might be a little bit difficult because people here are very short and they built their architecture in the 70s and the 80s quite short. So I do like this dark roof on the top here over the lounge, but this light roof that slants down needs to go up. So I would paint or use a lot lighter wood or even tiling or linoleum or something lighter just over the kitchen, so that even though the roof is slanted, which is kind of a nice asymmetrical feel that we got here in the lounge, I would lighten up the kitchen area to kind of sectorize it, not just from the decoration but also from the actual section of the room, so that this room goes up higher in the illusion and this room stays relatively cozy because it's a lounge. I wanted to keep it cozy. Move the lamp over because I want it to be practical. That would be my opinion. Also focus on the consistency of contrast with the colors of the benches, the proportions of your geometry. And concerning this room here, not sure the purpose of the room yet. I would need more context, but I would probably paint this accordingly. Same with one of these walls. Like this lounge feels very not very wide, so I would make this wall darker, so that this white wall makes it feel thinner. This whole lounge feels thinner and longer a little bit, because right now it feels kind of like a side lounge instead of an actual lounge. So I would need to compartmentalize this by painting this wall a bit darker so that it pops out the length of the lounge. That would be my recommendation here.
So I have a curiosity about the door that's closed, that one. Is that another door into that room? Is that a closet door? In either case, I would do something different for one than I would for the other, because if it's actually a closet door, people are going to think it flows into that room and open it all the time.
Sure, yeah. I wonder if it is a closet.
The placement is a bit weird if it is, like, and for the side it hinges on. Because unless the closet's super narrow and only the width of the door, then you're going to be opening it. I don't know, usually they open.
Yeah.
If the closet space behind the door flows to the right, it would make more sense to have it hinged on the other side. But it seems like an odd spot. It wouldn't really make sense to me that I wouldn't expect the room through the other door to lose out on, you know what I mean? Like, if that is a closet, it seems weird that they would put a closet there.
Yeah.
There wouldn't be enough space in the other room.
Yeah, yeah.
Be kind of like a hallway or a doorway into a hallway or a laundry room or something. So yeah, that's something you need to keep in mind is like, okay, the practicality, like, okay, so if somebody opens this door, nobody can walk through this corridor. They have to walk around through the lounge, around the couch, into that door. Or if they open the door, they block the way. And also, where are you going into? Are you going into this small room over here or not? So yeah, you guys have a very good point there.
This one's a little harder to tell for sure, but I think the refrigerator is in a bad location with respect to the pool table. The way the image is cut, it looks like the pool table could move closer to us, and then you wouldn't have the problem of somebody opening the refrigerator door while someone else was trying to
get the game
take a shot.
interrupted. Yeah.
Yeah. And it would give a bit more space, I think. Like, it would, for them, or just have more nice space to breathe in the picture between the sort of eating counter, breakfast counter, and the pool table.
Exactly.
I think the fridge looks quite far from the rest of the kitchen elements that we can see. Maybe there's more kitchen stuff that's hidden between, like, the sink and the refrigerator.
Yeah, like a stove
but the
or something.
refrigerator looks... Sorry, just a second.
Refrigerator looks a bit obnoxious there. In the first image, I actually preferred it over here in the corner there. It made more sense. Right beside where you chop vegetables, open the fridge, get access to the fridge, drop down, chop your vegetables again. It made more sense at this corner here. I liked the position of the fridge here more than the last one. But cool, man, Snoop. I hope you've got a lot of good comments, and for your first interior scene, I think, to be honest, you've done more than I have ever done for most interior scenes. So your lounge and your color layout for the lounge is excellent. There are just those details that you need to work on, keeping those things in mind. I do love the wood finishes, and I'm glad that you added the skirting on the boards down here. Decorated more things, the quality of your renders better. The material on your pool table could improve, but in general, now it's just like you need to think about the actual practicality of these 5 points that we had earlier. So if you're watching this later, Snoop, I hope that helps you a lot, and I can't wait to see some updates. Just keep those things in mind.
Amazing.
And Jones also mentioned a really cool comment. He says he personally wishes the lounge was the focus point. And I actually agree quite a bit with him as well, because this shot here of the lounge behind the window is kind of cute. But what happens if we actually focused on just the space, and then focus on the kitchen space, and then focus on the overall space? Storytelling is really important when it comes to presenting your renders. So you got to think a bit of your general shot, your long shot, your medium shot, your other medium shot, your close up, and the sequence of how you show those images and how you place your cameras can really tell a story. And if you're presenting this to clients, you can say, all right, so now we walk through this corridor, and as you can see, here's the lounge, and the lounge has these features on the cushions, and the cushions look like this, and this sunlight or whatever. But then what happens if you're feeling hungry? Well, let's go to the kitchen, and then you talk about the kitchen and things like that. So storytelling applies for this also, and I highly recommend you work with that too. Whew. So, did you guys learn something today about interior design? Was it a good critique?
Yes.
Good work, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, it was great, Chris. Thanks so much.
It was amazing. Thank you.
It was very good.
Teach me.
Teach you. All right.
And I found it very timely because I'm in the middle of designing a corridor for a video.
All right. So there you go. I love corridors with like dark walls and a white background. Just Kate wants to finish her comment. She says, about the fridge, it seems very far past the breakfast nook thing. Generally, the stove and fridge sink are kept close together. Triangle setup is usually ideal, which is from the first image, where the fridge is beside the sink and the bench of the sink. So yeah, that would make more sense with the stove over here. So like, get the food, chop the food, wash the food or prepare it with water, and then throw it onto the stove. Yeah, that makes sense. So that's into the point of like, yeah, you have to design your interiors with practicality in mind. Function, suitability to the people who live there, or who walk through there, or who work in there. So it's fun. Interior design, there's a lot of thought that goes into these things, and it's worth thinking about. So we have one last question before we finish today. Over the next 10 minutes is like, how do you like shader presentations for a good portfolio? And we have another question from Slink, which is, where do you learn internal interior design? All right, so have you heard of the 3-point light system? 3D things.
Yes. Yes.
Tell me about it.
It's basically having three lights separate from the background, which is called the rim light, and one is called the key light, which basically lights up the whole scene, which is the brightest one. I mean, other than the key rim light, that is the brightest one, and the other one is a fill light for excluding the darker areas of the shader of the scene of the material.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You got her about right.
Thank you.
So girlfriend's having too much of a good time in the background there. All right, so You got it about right. I mean, the concept of like, so I got another question for you. In the sense, you know what is a 3-point light? Why do we have 3 points? Why do you think this is?
Uh, 3 points is like the minimum amount of lights that can basically cover a whole 360 degrees. If that makes sense.
360 degrees, yeah. That's
Yeah, I mean that's exactly how I think geo satellites work. 3 satellites, 120 degrees apart, can cover the whole range of Earth.
of light and color. Yeah, exactly. So, for example, you have X, Y, and Z, right? If you have like
Yeah.
this shader ball here that I have in my scene that I made a while back, I have my shader ball and I want to highlight the material on, say, for example, let's throw on a material from one of my blankets. And then I use, for example, this metal plate. Yeah, I can't. Why can't I drag?
Oh, I think the latest version is not actually allowing you to drag if you're using the latest version.
I am. But why wouldn't it? What's wrong?
I think Kurt just talked about in his new video, like a bug or something.
Yeah, it was a bug. It was not allowing you to drag in the new one.
Alright,
Yeah.
let's roll back a version or two, yeah? Well, that sucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're trying to fix it.
I think it's because the code that they use for dragging from the file browser is a pretty weird concept. Before, the dragging used to be you hold down a hotkey and then drag, like Alt. Maybe they're trying to minimize it, but that means you're going to have to fix all the code from the file browser across the whole entire interface to make it actually work that way. Alright, so load up my shader ball. Compile the shaders. Right, load up the library from BlenderKit. Then throw in, for example, there we go. So this is my, okay, it's not a very complimentary color. Let's make it some wood, old wood. Okay, let it compile. So if this is like my showcase of what I want, like for me, like if I was doing a shader portfolio, then I love shader balls. But at the same time, I also need a couple images, like just, yeah, you need 3 things in my mind. You need cool, something cool. You need something practical, and you need something contextual. So for example, if I'm doing some wood, then I would have the shader balls with your amazing presentation, right? This is your first presentation, the logo, your pack, the variations, whatever, all together.
Okay.
And then you have your practical applications like a slab of wood, right? And then you have your contextual presentation, it's like wood on a chair, wood on a table, wood in a wood house. Yeah, right? Wood in a barn, right? So those would be the 3 things that I'll focus on if I want to sell those materials in that particular way. So first I have my cool, this is like my attention grabber, right? Then you have the technical info, you know, like an infographic that shows age of the wood, the edge detection of the wood, the grain of the wood, you know, different slabs of wood with really minimal. So this is like a context of wood, and then I have my contextual application of the material. So this is what it could look like with your chair. This is what it could look like as a toy. This is what it could look like as a table, and I'll use it that way. Usually, most people focus on the cool attention grabber or a practical attention grabber. That's perfectly fine. but I really love to see materials with some contextual information applied to it. So for example, a good example is edgeware, the edgeware from on Gumroad. Let me just actually go to my Gumroad and check out my library. I'll show you some good examples.
Sure.
Okay, so you have hold tools. Okay, so here, Ultimate Concrete Shader. The Ultimate Concrete Shader starts with the shader ball. Notice the balls all together. Let me just see if I can. Sorry. I'll have to click on the tiny arrow. Not a big fan of that. So here he has the attention grabber and a shader ball for the hero asset. He just focused on the attention grabber. This is like the technical variations. And this is kind of like the attention grabber. This was the thumbnail in the beginning, and it looked great. He had no context, but I've seen his work before here in Erindale's server. And
Rahul is amazing.
Yeah, he does great work. So that's half good. It's just missing the contextual application. Yeah. So here we have, for example, where's another one? Edge masks that only has the technical. Soap bubble has a beauty image. Let me just find you the one that I really like. Procedural foam. This was by Ben. It was quite a good presentation, but he's always good. There it is. Blitz mode. Blitz mode edge detection. So he has a technical. This is like the screen grabbing, the attention grabber. And then he has the contextual demonstration, and on top of that, he has a technical presentation of the edge shaders with shader balls. And with that, he shows variation and technical. So he did everything. He did everything right. He had shader balls. He had the basics of the material. He had the attention grabbing with the technical aspects of it. And he had this really awesome applied model showcasing how awesome his material is. So if you're showcasing your materials for a portfolio, I will tick those 3 boxes off. And for sure, like this was like, oh my gosh, can't believe he shared this for free. Type thing, but it's pretty good. So that's my answer for that, and that concludes 1 hour. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks for sharing your input and your critique. I'm going to finish the recording here now. Hang out just a bit more because I still need to do the mind maps that I mentioned. But yeah, feel free. So. That's it for today. Stop the stream.
Thanks, Trace.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks again, Grace. Great as usual.
Thanks.
Awesome. That pleasure's mine.
Yes.